let's jump into our downfall, which if you're familiar with us, then you already know what's going on. We're going to give a quick recap. I say quick, it's probably not going to be quick. It was 6.5 hours long,
Right.
but we'll give our recap of the episode. We cut that out, host it separately on YouTube for your viewing convenience. So if you just find yourself on that recap and want to hear our thoughts actually discussing the episode, that will also be linked down in the description. But my friend, if you would like to kick us off on this one.
Yeah, so the party has just escaped from the engine room of the Obtenibrator that they destroyed, and they've returned. I think they're either back in the speakeasy or they're within like the domain of Salaha where he had sent the construct. But the party's basically getting back together, and they've also gathered Cassida as well. And it's basically like, hey, step one complete. Like, we stopped the protocol of like disseminating the information across Exandria. Like, we did it. Well, rather there being like deep celebration, Cassida is suddenly put off by the presence of faces she hasn't seen before. And being a brilliant archmage, she realizes that she is in the company of not just the prime deities, but also the betrayer gods as well. In realizing this, she looks to Trist, who she has formed a bond with, and essentially is like, what's going on? What's happening? I think it's also to Shar, who comes up behind her and like grabs her by the back of the head and is kind of like, what's this Aeorian mage doing here? And does she need to be here anymore? Trist, realizing that Cassida's life is on the line, and Cassida herself also realizing her life is on the line, is going to try to cast a teleport spell, which Salaha effortlessly counterspells. And she begins to panic. She's realizing that the plan she had in mind as being one of the society of the primes, like, we're going to take this weapon, we're going to redesign it to kill the betrayers. She's putting two and two together and realizing, Trist, you and the prime deities aren't here to help. So then why are you here with the betrayer gods? And as she puts it together, she realized that they have come not just to destroy the machine, but to destroy Aeor entirely. Cassida is thinking about her son, and she begins to plead and beg that they would spare the city, spare the family, spare her son. And she's also looking at Triss like, was I doing the right thing? Like, when I said that stuff earlier about killing the betrayers, I didn't really fully understand everything. And then Laura Bailey has this great moment playing the matron, Amira, where she comes alongside her and puts her arm around her and says, like, of course you're doing the right thing. What's the password to get down the elevators, to get past the security down to the Factorum Malleus? Beyond this, Cassida gives sort of like her last ditch effort, and she says, hey, there is a scroll bank. You destroyed the scribe that had the protocol, but the scroll bank has backup copies. I can take you there. I can show you which scrolls has the information. You can destroy it, and then you can destroy the machine. And if you do that, no one has to die. The city doesn't have to be destroyed. And ultimately, they do agree to this plan, mostly because Aiden and Trist don't want to see the city completely destroyed. So ultimately, what they decide to do is they decide to split up. Some of the party's going to go to this scribe bank, and it's going to be Cassida, Trist, Acadia, and Father Milo, who says basically like, you think we're just going to let Cassida walk off with the prime deities after she's just revealed a plan to kill the betrayer gods? I don't think so. Like, we're going to come with you. And maybe Umleta goes as well. I can't remember. And the rest of the group's going to go down that elevator with the password that Cassida gives them and essentially attack and destroy the Factorum Malleus. On their way out, the Stormlord has already begun his assault, and Brennan describes a catastrophic and gruesome set of events of like the city lurching, people being like thrown up 80 feet immediately to their deaths, hundreds of people dying, a wizard who's like sort of trying to hold the storm back and then gets impaled by his own staff. It is total anarchy and disaster, and not very good things happening for Aeor in this moment. But the party, they do split up. They do make it. Eventually, one does make it to the scribe bank and they begin going through the scrolls. And then the other party descends down in this elevator of the Genesis Ward, eventually to the atrium of the Factorum Malleus. And then we go to break only, I think it's like an hour and a half into this 6.5 hour episode. So Will, what happens after that?
Yeah. So, like Blake said, this was like 5 hours. So I'm gonna do my best to hit things, but I'll probably forget or not mention things, and y'all just let me know in the comments. But we pick up with the second half, with the crew that went toward the Factorum Malleus, basically standing in front of it, and Salaha kind of going up first, since he is an Aormaton and has not been discovered yet. So he walks up and sees Selena, who created him, and also a Castriel, this celestial. There's actually a number of people here, but that's who he engages with. And Salaha tries to deceive them because, he's still trying to keep up his disguise, but he fails. Even though he rolls a really high deception check and actually does deceive Selena, he cannot deceive a Castriel because one of the abilities of these celestial solars is to know when they're being lied to. So the jig is just immediately up, and we roll initiative. Now, the majority of the next 5 hours is combat. So again, just going to give highlights here.
Only
but this was
only 2 rounds of combat, by the way, in 5 hours.
Definitely felt like the spiritual sequel to like the 1 second moment from Calamity. But incredible encounter, centered around this Factorum Malleus and its 7 wards. So it's comprised of these 4 wards spinning below and 3 wards spinning above. And each one basically represents a different kind of domain, if you will, not in the same way we typically think of domains in D&D, but a different like source of power for the gods. And with each one destroyed, they will become closer to becoming gods again and have their abilities restored. So this was a really cool encounter, with tons and tons of things going on. So I recommend you guys watch it to get the full effect. But these bonuses are crazy that are built into destroying these wards, and the 4 below are a bit weaker, with the 3 above being like extremely powerful boons. So to boil it down here, this encounter is basically team gods, both betrayers and primes, versus some named archmages of Aor, like Selena, who again is Salaha's creator, and Adamar, who was, I think, like the head of the Cogent Society or something like
one
that.
One of the chief architects of it. Yeah.
Yes. So we got a couple of named archmages. We have a Nafalshni. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's like a grand demon. A Glabrezu, which is another big demon. A brass dragon, a silver dragon, and a Taro, the shadow dragon. A Castriel, the solar. Aormatons, and then several more unnamed kind of mages and wizards.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 teams here. Now, of note, like I said, the gods get these boons when they destroy these wards, but of note, the emissary does not get these boons because he's not actually a god and is instead an emissary. And Brennan actually let Noshir decide, and Noshir just said, yeah, I don't think it would make sense for me to get those. So it was a pretty cool moment. But because of that, the emissary is way weaker than the rest of the gods as this battle goes on. So in large part, they are doing their best to protect him because, as we know, there's something in the emissary that is like crucial for this mission. And namely, Aiden is the one who is trying to protect the emissary because he, for one, is taking half of the emissary's damage at all times. I forget which ability it is that does that, but he's doing that. And then also he cast an ability which lets any of his allies be able to use a reaction to teleport to an ally and take all of the damage they would have taken. So that is happening all throughout this combat in order to, support each other as best they can. And one really clutch moment where this is used is a Castriel goes to attack Emira, but Aiden teleports and takes the damage for her. And then this is later paid off when Amira does the same thing back for him, and I think takes damage that would have killed Aiden in the moment.
Yeah.
And they have like a nice bond, and Aiden says like, "You're truly family now." But mid battle, we cut to Trist, who is with the other team with the scrolls, and the sending stone in her pocket goes off, and it's her son. And he's saying that like he's terrified, it's getting bad here, like the place is getting run over with the demons, and can you send any help? And then he hands the phone to his father, Amaris, Trist's husband, and he says, like, yeah, it's bad. Pervon is here trying to protect us, but it's not looking great. And Trist is like, you guys just need to go find somewhere safe and hide. And then while this conversation is happening, Amaris realizes that his daughter is missing, and they're like, "Where'd she go?" And the son says she went to go help others that were in trouble. And Trist can just kind of hear all of this chaos happening in the background when the stone just goes silent. Arcadia asks, "Hey, like, what are you gonna do?" And Triss is like, "I can't do anything under these current circumstances." So she elects to go run towards her brethren at the Factorum Malleus and decide to try and help them like destroy that as soon as possible. We then cut back to the main battle, and things are progressing. But the next big move that happens, and the biggest move of the whole thing, really, is Selena teleports Salaha like to her at the top of the Malleus, in between these three upper wards. And Salaha takes advantage of this by casting Meteor Swarm. And lots of counter spells go out, but none of them are ultimately successful. So the Meteor Swarm goes off, and he gets to choose, I think, like 4 different meteor
Yeah.
impacts. So what he does is he attacks these upper wards twice, and then he attacks a bunch of enemies with the other 2. So this is an absolutely insane attack. Each strike individually does 20d6 fire, 20d6 force. So this just destroys all 3 of the upper wards in one go. And it also kills Adamar and a Castriel. Selena manages to survive because she rolled her save on both of the strikes. But with these 3 upper wards down, this fight takes a drastic turn because they just got all 3 of the Omega powerful boons.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to list out exactly what they did, but just to give you a hint of what they did, they can now all cast a free spell on each of their turns, up to 9th level. So a free 9th level spell every turn. They get massive increases to their health and heal at the start of every turn, and they all essentially do 10x their damage. So around this time is when Trist actually makes it there and meets up with them. She heals everybody and actually has a great moment where she persuades one of the Aormatons to like join them and attack one of the wards, and she rolls a 60 on the persuasion due to all the bonuses they've gotten.
Yeah.
And the next big moment is Aiden casts Sunburst on the entire room. And after the damage that the Meteor Swarm did, this basically wipes out almost everything else. He kills all of the dragons in one go and the 2 big demons. And I think all but one of the wards is remaining at this point. So one of the wards they just destroy actually gives them True Sight as an ability. And when that happens, they notice Father Milo disappear. So it was an illusion the whole time. And they're like, okay, that's why he hadn't been doing anything this fight. He wasn't really here. Selena at this point is like, I've made a huge mistake, and basically faces Salaha and repents. She says, I wish to know your light. Like, I'm so sorry. And she kind of throws her staff to the ground, and at the same time grabs this like jewel around her neck and hurls it up. And this jewel is the same one that everyone had seen earlier in a vision where a Castriel had given it to her. And what they realize is that there is a deity entrapped in this necklace. It is one of their brethren. So Salaha is given a choice here because Selena has thrown up this necklace, which is going to get destroyed, killing one of the gods. But at the same time, she's casting a spell. So he can either save his family, one of the gods, or prevent her spell cast. And Salaha goes to save the god. And because of this, Selena is able to cast Wish. And what this spell essentially does is it takes the information within Salaha from the scribe, which again is the Aormaton that he absorbed earlier, which is the one that like wrote down the blueprints for the Malleus. So she takes that information and then shoots it out to every wizard's mind in Aor, basically saying like, this is our last hope. Like, get out of the city, protect this information. Um, and so that happens, and basically in the same moment, um, they are able to destroy this final ward, which makes the Factorum Malleus able to be destroyed, essentially. So Salaha gives the jewel containing their god friend in to Asha, who breaks it open, and inside is Arcadia, who immediately asks, "Where is he?" And we realize that Asmodeus has been pretending to be Arcadia this whole time while casting the illusion of Milo, Father Milo. So some of the deities are like, okay, wait, what's going on with the betrayers? And they realize that the rest of the betrayers that were with them in here are no longer in here. They've run away. So some of them decide to chase after them and see where they're going, while the rest are remaining in this room. And when this last ward is destroyed, again, the gods are basically fully gods again. They have their full power, and their mortal forms are basically getting torn apart. So um, we realize that, or excuse me, the emissary is going to the middle of this Malleus and is like basically like dying to in order to destroy it and contain this like energy that's going to fully destroy the weapon. And it's basically bad news. And Salaha is given this option, I guess, because he's like the god of arcane and stuff, to decide what happens with this energy. And he decides, you know what? I'm going to redirect this blast to the city itself, because Selena just poured all this information to everyone in the city. So now everyone in the city must die. Um, so he does that, but he creates a gate at the same time so that any of his brethren, which I think Amira, the Raven Queen, is still like in the room with him, so that they are able to safely get out. And he actually pushes Selena through the gate as well, because he has this moment of actually being really proud of her and what she was able to accomplish. But so then we have this moment where big explosion, essentially, where the emissary is completely destroyed and then surrounded by darkness, because he's now face to face with the matron who is here to, escort him to the other side. And he asks, if are you here to take me to mama? And she says, yes, and you did well. And she starts to escort him, and he says, find those who are worthy and take them home. And hearing this, Amira thinks of the child, Cassida's son, Hallis, and actually has him transported out of the city to safety. And at this point, this blast ruptures through the city. The gods all shed their mortal forms and ascend back to godhood. Oh, I skipped a part actually. The deities that went to chase after the betrayers run into them, and we actually see that Cassida is just completely eviscerated, and standing over her is Amaris, who is Trist's husband. But actually, it's Asmodeus who says, I always take the form of those that would find me most beautiful. So he has killed Cassida, and he actually has the scrolls of information, basically the blueprints for the Malleus. So we roll initiative again. Trist luckily rolls highest, so she acts first, and she destroys the plans for the weapon, which Asmodeus was planning to use against them. So Aiden at this point asks Asmodeus, like, why? And he says, you had your chance for us to be family, but you're the ones that threw that away. I hate you all, and I will hate you forever. And Aiden's like, do not lie in my presence, or something to that effect. But the betrayers just all up and leave after that. So then the blast rupturing through the city, all of the gods shed their mortal forms. And one last thing that Trist and Amira do is heal Cassida's body, not resurrect her, but like get her back in one piece. And Amira actually casts like a protective bubble around her that will protect her body from the crash of the city itself. So the gods, now all in their godly form, kind of meet up again up in the clouds, and the law bearer joins them now. And Ayun is like, why didn't you come? And she says, it was love, because if something were to happen down there to the wild mother, I would have done anything to save her, and I can't break my own rules. So instead, I sent my son. Ayun then says, you know what, like, we've broken this place. And the rest of them all agree. And they say, to fix this, We got to do what we did before, except this time close the door behind us, basically planting the seeds for the divine gate. Saying we first got to reseal the betrayers and then we got to deal with ourselves. And it's at this point that the story is wrapping up. Matt actually rejoins the table as Brennan gives up, and he gives a short little monologue about the light from the occultist thalamus in the ruins of Aor basically fading and shutting down, having completed its vision. And that's where episode 3 of Downfall ends. Again, thank you for bearing with me on that long ramble of 5 hours, but yes, the conclusion of this 3 episode mini arc. And again, if you want to see our discussion, if you're on the recap, it'll be linked down below.